The reality most men don't understand is that silence is not weakness, it's power. When you're constantly talking, constantly explaining yourself, or always reaching out, you're removing the space that actually allows her to feel something for you. Desire is not created when you are in her face 24/7, texting her every moment of the day, or trying to prove your value through endless attention. Desire is born in absence. It grows in the quiet moments when she doesn't know what you're thinking, when she's left to wonder where you are and what you're doing. The longer you stay silent, the more that space works in your favor. That space turns into curiosity, and curiosity is the seed of attraction. Think about it. When someone is always available, always talking, and always showing up, you stop valuing it. It becomes ordinary. But the moment that constant flow disappears, the silence makes you notice the absence. Suddenly you feel the void. That's exactly what happens in relationships. If she always hears from you, if she always knows she has your attention, she never has the chance to question whether she could lose it. But when you pull back and stop filling the silence with constant communication, she starts to feel it. She wonders why you're quiet. She starts to analyze what she said or did. And she begins to think about you more than she ever did when you were chasing. Silence amplifies your presence in her mind far more than words ever could. Now, silence is not about playing games. It's not about ignoring her to punish her or trying to manipulate her emotions. It's about understanding the psychology of desire. Desire requires space. It requires longing. It requires her to feel that she doesn't fully have you, even if she wants to. If you're always over communicating, you rob her of that natural process. She can't miss you if you never go away. She can't crave you if she's never left to wonder. Silence gives her the space to do the one thing that builds emotional attachment. Think about you on her own. And here's the truth most men won't admit. Silence is uncomfortable for them, not for her. Men often rush to break silence because they're afraid of losing her, afraid of being forgotten, or afraid she's slipping away. But that fear makes them react emotionally instead of strategically. They break the silence too soon, they reach out when they shouldn't, and they kill the very attraction they were trying to build. When you master silence, you're mastering yourself. You're saying, I don't need to speak. I don't need to chase. I'm not afraid to wait. That kind of restraint is powerful because it signals strength. A man who isn't afraid of silence is a man who is comfortable in his own value. The longer you can stay quiet, the more the pressure builds in her mind. She starts to notice the absence of your energy. She starts to realize she doesn't have control over your attention anymore. And that shift makes her chase it. Suddenly, she's the one thinking about you. She's the one reaching out. She's the one wondering why you're not acting the way most men do. Silence flips the dynamic. Instead of you chasing her validation, she starts seeking yours. So understand this. Every time you stay silent when you could have begged, explained, or overtalked, you're giving yourself the upper hand. You're showing that you don't need to fight for her attention because you already value yourself. That silence will echo louder in her mind than any speech, any text, or any argument ever could. The longer you stay silent, the deeper she feels it. When you think about the power of silence, one of the strongest aspects is what it communicates about you as a man. Silence signals strength and control. Most guys, when a woman pulls away, get emotional, reactive, and desperate. They send long paragraphs, they blow up her phone, they demand answers, and they try to talk their way back into her good graces. What does that show her? It shows weakness. It shows insecurity. It shows that he can't handle himself when things don't go his way. But when you stay silent instead of reacting, you're sending a completely different message. You're saying without words, I am in control of myself, my emotions, and my life. That unshakable composure is what makes her feel that you're on a different level than other men. Control is magnetic. Think about how rare it is in today's world. Everyone is so quick to react, quick to defend themselves, quick to explode in emotion. When you are the one man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't get rattled, who doesn't lose himself in the moment, it stands out. Silence in the right moment shows her that you're not needy for her approval, you're not fighting for her attention, you're not desperate to explain yourself. You're calm, you're steady, you're unbothered, and that makes her question herself. She starts to think, why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he trying harder? Why isn't he like the other men who chase me? That curiosity is the spark that shifts the power dynamic. Silence is not the absence of action, it's the presence of restraint. It takes more strength to hold back than it does to lash out. Any man can send 10 texts in a row. Any man can beg for a response. But only a man with real self-control can resist the urge and sit in silence. And women feel that difference. They may never say it, but deep down, they respect the man who doesn't let them control his emotions. Because when you react instantly, you're showing her she has power over you. But when you stay silent, you're showing her that you have power over yourself. That control is far more attractive than anything you could say to her. Another aspect of silence's strength is that it conveys confidence in your value. A man who knows what he brings to the table doesn't chase anyone who doesn't see it. He doesn't waste energy proving himself. Silence communicates that confidence loud and clear. It says, I don't need to explain why I'm worthy. I don't need to argue my place in your life. I already know my worth. And if you don't, that's your loss. That quiet self-assurance speaks volumes. Women may test you with silence to see if you'll break, but when you remain calm, you pass the test. She realizes she can't shake you, and that makes her respect you more than if you had tried to force her attention. Men who understand this use silence as a tool, not a weapon. They don't go silent to punish a woman. They go silent because they refuse to lose control of themselves. They know their silence demonstrates strength, and that strength is what draws her in deeper. When she sees that you're not crumbling under the pressure, she feels something powerful, respect. And respect is the foundation of attraction. Without respect, there is no lasting emotional connection. So when you choose silence over reaction, you're not doing nothing, you're doing everything. You're showing her that you're steady, composed, and unshakable. You're proving that you're a man who doesn't get controlled by anyone else's behavior. And in the end, that strength is what she will feel the deepest. The longer you remain silent and in control, the more she respects and desires you. One of the most underestimated effects of silence is the way it forces reflection. When you pull back and stop giving a woman your constant energy, attention, and words, she's left with nothing but her own thoughts. At first, she might brush it off, pretending she doesn't notice or trying to act like she doesn't care. But as time goes on, the silence starts to echo. She replays the conversations, the things she said, the way she acted, and she starts to wonder whether she pushed too far. Well, that's the power of restraint. When you don't try to force her to see your value, she ends up thinking about it on her own. Reflection is a powerful tool because it shifts the focus back onto her. When you constantly explain, argue, or chase, her mind is focused on your actions. But when you say nothing, the spotlight turns inward. She starts asking herself questions. Did I make a mistake? Was I too cold? Did I push him away? Why isn't he reacting? That loop of self-questioning grows stronger the longer the silence lasts. It creates doubt, and that doubt fuels curiosity. Curiosity, in turn, leads to emotional attachment because the more she wonders about you, the more invested she becomes in the answers. Think about how people value things that are hard to access. When you give someone unlimited attention, they don't have to reflect on their behavior because they know you'll always be there. But silence interrupts that pattern. Suddenly, she doesn't have your energy as a safety net. Suddenly, she has to face her own emotions without your reassurance. And in that quiet space, she begins to realize just how much your presence meant. The absence of your words and attention becomes louder than anything you could have said. And this is why silence is so effective. It creates contrast. When you are present and engaged, she may have taken it for granted, but when you step back, she's forced to notice the difference. She starts comparing how she felt when you were giving her energy to how she feels now. That contrast is where the reflection deepens. She feels the void, and that void magnifies your value. The more she reflects, the more she realizes the emotional impact you actually have on her. But reflection doesn't just make her miss you, it can also make her question herself in a way that humbles her. Ego thrives on control. And when she sees you not responding, not chasing, not giving in, it shakes that control. She wonders why her usual tactics didn't work on you. She reflects on why you're different from other men. That reflection plants seeds of respect because she sees that you are not moved by the same things that move everyone else. You're not just another guy who's desperate to keep her happy at all costs. You're someone who values yourself enough to remain silent rather than beg. That reflection builds attraction at a deeper level than words ever could. Over time, reflection through silence can change how she sees the relationship entirely. She may start realizing that her behavior isn't serving her. She may become more thoughtful, more respectful, and more careful in how she interacts with you because she doesn't want to feel that silence again. That's how powerful it is. It conditions her through reflection to recognize your worth and to treat you with more care. The key is understanding that silence works because it makes her do the work internally. Instead of you pushing your value onto her, she pulls it out on her own through her own thoughts. And when something comes from her, it carries more weight. Reflection born from silence always digs deeper than persuasion born from words. The longer you allow her to reflect in the silence, the stronger the pull she feels toward you. One of the biggest mistakes men make when dealing with women is believing that their value comes from how much they give, how much they explain, or how much they prove themselves. They think if they just keep showing effort, keep reminding her of everything they've done, she'll recognize their worth. But the truth is, the more you try to over-explain, the more you talk yourself out of value. Words can be cheap when they're used to convince someone of something they don't already feel. Silence, on the other hand, carries weight. It's a statement without words that says, I don't need to prove myself to you. And that's exactly why it makes her see you differently. Silence protects your value because it stops you from lowering your worth through desperate behavior. When a woman feels you chasing her constantly, begging for attention or trying to justify why she should treat you better, she doesn't see strength, she sees weakness. She sees a man who doubts himself so much that he feels he has to campaign for her approval. That image kills attraction. But when you stay silent, you're showing her that your value is non-negotiable. You're not seeking validation. You're not trying to force her to acknowledge what you bring to the table. You simply know what you're worth. And whether she sees it or not doesn't change that truth. This is the mindset shift that flips the dynamic in your favor. Instead of giving her the power to define your value, silence hands it back to you. You're not available for every conversation, every demand, or every emotional outburst. You're not there to reassure her every time she tries to test you. You let your absence communicate the message. If you can't appreciate me, you don't get access to me. And that boundary forces her to reconsider her actions because silence makes her confront the reality of losing your energy. The more you talk and over explain, the more you risk saying something that weakens your position. But the less you say, the more powerful each action becomes. Think of it like this: a rare diamond doesn't scream about its value, it doesn't have to convince anyone, it just is valuable, and people recognize it when they encounter it. Silence positions you like that diamond. You don't have to tell her you're different. She feels it when you don't react like every other man who's desperate for her attention. What happens over time is that she starts to notice the silence more than she ever noticed your words. She starts to replay moments and realize that you're not chasing like others do. You're not trying to impress her endlessly. You're not bending over backwards for crumbs of attention. That quiet strength unsettles her ego but attracts her emotions. She starts to wonder, why isn't he trying harder? Why isn't he begging like the rest? That reflection makes her recognize that your attention must be rare and valuable if you can pull back so easily. And once she believes your attention is valuable, the dynamic shifts entirely. She starts working for it instead of expecting it. She starts respecting your presence instead of taking it for granted. Silence protected your value because it reminded her that your time, your energy, and your presence are privileges, not guarantees. That realization is what makes her step up her game and treat you differently. And when you protect your value with silence, you stop giving discounts on yourself. You stop selling yourself cheap. You show her that you don't need to argue, chase, or explain to be seen. You're valuable whether she acknowledges it or not. And when she finally realizes it, she feels it deeper than if you had tried to convince her with 1,000 words. The longer you hold that silence, the clearer it becomes that your value speaks for itself. When you take away constant words, validation, and attention, you're not just being quiet, you're giving her ego no fuel to feed on. Most women are used to men rushing to reassure them, chasing after them when they pull away, and fighting to prove their worth. That kind of behavior inflates her ego because she feels she can do the bare minimum and still have you begging for her time. But when you choose silence, you're essentially cutting off that supply. You're showing her that her games, her attitude, or her coldness don't move you. That's when she feels the real test. Because now it's not about whether you can entertain her ego, it's about whether she truly values you beyond the attention you give. Silence breaks ego because it forces her to confront something she's not used to. Women are used to being chased, admired, and constantly validated. That's the pattern they've seen with most men. But when you step outside of that pattern, when you show her that you won't play into the game, you shift the balance of power. She starts asking herself why you're not reacting, why you're not running after her, and whether she's losing something real. That discomfort breaks down the wall of pride she may have been hiding behind, and it reveals her true feelings. It's easy for a woman to act detached when she knows you'll keep pursuing her no matter what. She can say things she doesn't mean, pull away, or even test you because she's confident you'll always be there to chase. But silence changes that dynamic completely. When you remain calm and don't give her the reaction she expects, she begins to wonder if she's miscalculated. She starts replaying in her mind, did I push him too far? Does he even care anymore? Did I just lose him? That questioning is what starts breaking down the ego and opening the door for her emotions to take over. Silence is also a filter. It separates women who only wanted attention from women who truly want connection. The one who just crave validation will disappear when you don't feed her ego anymore. And that's good It saves you wasted time and energy. The one who genuinely feels something for you, though, will not stay silent forever. Your lack of reaction will pull her back in because deep down, she doesn't want to lose you. And when she comes back, it's no longer about her ego, it's about her emotions. Another powerful effect of silence is that it builds respect. A woman can't respect a man who bends every time she applies pressure, but she respects the one who can stand firm, the one who won't dance to her tune, the one who shows he has his own frame and won't break it for anyone. Silence communicates strength louder than any words could. It shows her that you're not playing to win her approval, you're living by your standards. And she either respects that or she loses you. That reality makes her think carefully before playing games again. The beauty of silence is that it requires no effort. You don't have to argue, you don't have to explain, and you don't have to fight for your position. By doing nothing, you do everything. You break down the ego, reveal her real intentions, and protect your own value. When she realizes you won't feed her ego, she has only two choices: walk away because she was never serious, or drop the games and connect with you emotionally. Either way, silence exposes the truth. The longer you can hold that silence, the more powerful the shift becomes. Mystery is one of the most powerful forces in attraction, and silence is what creates that mystery. When you don't always reveal what you're thinking, when you don't rush to explain yourself, and when you're not constantly available, you force her to live in a state of curiosity. She starts asking herself questions, and those questions fuel emotions. What's he doing? Why isn't he called? Is he losing interest? Is he talking to someone else? That storm of curiosity takes root in her mind, and the more she thinks about you, the deeper her emotions grow. Silence gives her the space to imagine, and often what she imagines is even stronger than reality. A man who is silent is unpredictable, and unpredictability is magnetic. Women get bored easily when they know exactly what you'll do and how you'll react. If every time she texts you respond immediately, or every time she pulls back you chase, there's no tension, no suspense. But when you add silence into the mix, you disrupt that pattern. Suddenly, she doesn't know what to expect. That unpredictability makes her lean in because she's trying to figure you out, and that chase in her mind is what pulls her emotionally closer. The less you say, the more powerful your presence becomes. Think about it. When someone is always talking, explaining, or trying to justify themselves, their words lose weight. But when someone speaks less and chooses silence at times, every word they eventually say carries more meaning. Silence amplifies your value. It makes her realize that when you finally do give attention or open up, it's rare and significant. A rarity makes her appreciate it more. Silence also triggers one of the strongest emotional responses in women: the fear of loss. When you're quiet, when you don't chase, and when you don't always check in, she starts to feel like she could be losing her grip on you. That fear makes her act. She may reach out more, put in effort, or even confess feelings she was trying to hide before. That's the power of silence. It doesn't just create mystery, it inspires her to invest more in you because she doesn't want to lose what she can't fully read or control. Another layer of mystery created by silence is that it sets you apart from other men. Most men can't tolerate the tension of silence. They break quickly, sending long texts, calling repeatedly, or over-explaining themselves. But when you don't do that, when you remain calm and unbothered, you automatically stand out. She recognizes that you're not like the rest, and that uniqueness increases your attraction. The man who isn't desperate to fill the silence is the man who commands respect. What's important to understand is that silence is not about playing games. It's about holding your frame. It's about knowing that you don't need to overexpose yourself to be understood or valued. You know your worth, and you let her come to terms with it on her own. That's what mystery really is. It's not about hiding, it's about revealing only what you choose when you choose and making her eager for more. The more mystery you allow to exist between you, the stronger the emotional connection becomes. Because emotions are built not on constant exposure, but on anticipation, curiosity, and the fear of missing out. And silence is the key that unlocks all three. The deeper she feels that mystery, the stronger her attachment grows.